enough of me and my dashiki. Here is Leslie Logan Brown. Good to have you here. How are you?
Hi, so good. And that dashiki is nice.
I'm trying to tell you, this is a Tuesday dashiki. Now, here's my secret to life. Really, is that if I'm having a day that feels a little bit tougher, I put on bright colors. And so
Oh,
no, and it's a good thing. So
love
today,
it.
the morning was it was a morning, and so I'm like, all right, we need bright colors because it makes me feel better. And as you can see, I'm clearly recovered. So everyone, you are in for a major treat. Leslie is one of my favorite new friends here in the Triangle area, doing beautiful work. Co-founder at Haven Farm, co-owner at Logan's Garden shop over in Raleigh, downtown Raleigh, and again, just somebody who's doing the work right from the right place, from the right center. So, Leslie, I want to hear your story. How in the world did you get to developing Haven Farm, which is a massive project? Give me that origin in your entrepreneurial journey for our community.
Such a good question. And it's a crazy journey. So, I've been a part of garden life, plant life for my whole life because my family's garden center goes back 57 years.
Mm,
I'm third generation owner. So, I've always been around plants, always been around gardening. But it
mm,
was always from the retail side, right? We are a retail business, retail family. So, that was really the frame in
yeah,
which I grew up.
yeah.
And so as I was like growing into my individual interests, I really got into like essential oils and became really curious about how things from the earth can heal our bodies.
Mm,
Um, because I'm just a very deeply spiritual person, and everything for me relates to the spirit. And
mhm.
so I was looking for the answer to like where in the earth can I find things for my body, my mind, my spirit, connectivity to source.
Yes.
And so my passion began with essential oils, and I really started diving into that and became really curious and enamored by how each individual plant really has something unique to offer the human body. So then, but again, I'm in retail. A lot of my life was in ministry in a conservative Christian frame.
Hmm.
But then I just felt myself being pulled a little further out, a little broader, right?
Right. You
And
felt you
so
felt this expansion happening.
I did,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
"What is this?"
That
And I'll
makes
never
so much sense.
forget because my frame again was that conservative Christian box, and
Hmm.
I remember one day I was just praying and I said, God, I want my whole life to count. I don't want it to be just what I do in church or what I do in ministry or what I do at work. I want my whole life to be an offering. How do I do that?
Hmm.
And I remember that the answer to that prayer that resounded in my heart so loud was, I want you to buy some land.
Wow.
And I was like, what? Like, okay.
Right, right.
And so that is exactly what I did. And I'm usually the crazy one in my family. So I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I really feel like I'm being called to buy land. I don't know what it's for yet. So we set out on a journey. We found this piece of land in Nightdale. It was bigger than I thought that I could handle, but I still felt like, okay, I think this is the piece because when I stepped onto the ground, I'll never forget the first time I put
Mm,
my foot here, I heard the word haven like echo in my soul.
yeah.
I was like, okay, all right, we're going to take this piece of land and we're going to do something with it. So long story short, it was just a little journey. We started growing things here, watermelons, cucumbers, corn. My son, who at the time was 16, was really interested in growing. So we
Mm.
started out small like that. And then we realized in order to grow here, we have to live here. It's just too much driving back and forth.
Wow. Wow.
And
You weren't
so,
even living there. Okay. I didn't know that. That's wild.
yeah, we were living about 15 minutes away from
Yeah.
here. And everything with farming or growing, it's like you have to be right there. You have to be attentive at all times. It could be a storm, it could be a cold front, it could be the plants
Mhm.
need water, deer could come in, whatever. So we decided to build a home out here on the farm.
Wow.
And so we ended up moving here in 2018. And during that same period of time, my my life was going through some significant changes on some other fronts, and I was wrestling with some anxiety that was new to me, like
Mm.
just a different level of anxiety that I hadn't met before. And
Yeah.
all of my normal things didn't necessarily answer it, right? Like I tried the prayer and all the things I knew to do, but there was something else that was needed. And so we ended up talking to my holistic doctor, who suggested that I try CBD.
Mm.
And within 4 days of trying CBD, my whole frame changed. Like I felt like a brand new person.
Wow.
Now, being raised in a Bible Belt, right? I didn't
Woo.
know what to think
I
about
bet.
cannabis.
I bet.
When I told my parents that I was going to
Right.
start
They're
going
thinking you're smoking the devil's grass, right?
devil's juice all day long, right? And I was kind of nervous. I was like, am I about to lose my salvation over this bottle? And so much growth since then.
That's
But
great.
anyway, I started
That's
taking it.
great.
I'm giving you the cliff notes, but it really changed my life. And so my son, who's also growing up in all of this, says, Mama, this plant is incredible. I want to
Mm.
learn how to grow it. I want to help other people heal.
Wow.
So we ended up starting to plant hemp on the farm, and like it just evolved, right? It wasn't
Mm.
something we planned on. It just so happened that that was the same time as hemp became really popular and CBD became really popular, but we
Mm.
had no idea any of that was coming. We just decided to grow because of what it was doing in my life. And so
Wow.
all of that to say, part of what has evolved here on the farm for us is growing and producing our own hemp-based CBD products.
Yeah.
But that's just a part of it. Because as I mentioned, my passion is all plants, right? Discovering
Mhm.
the earth, discovering what's been given to us in abundance that's available for
Right.
our bodies and our minds. And so as we've continued to grow, my heart just has been pulled towards now, how do I make all of this space available to community?
Right.
Because when I asked God, how do I make an impact? It wasn't about me or my family. It's like, how do I open space for
Mm.
others? And
Right.
so that's why we've been really pursuing creating a venue space here, not just for weddings, although that's a part of what the offer will be, but
Yeah.
for gatherings in the community, for people to get connected to the earth, to come out to the farm and see how things grow or learn about what plants are going to help me. How do I eat more healthy? How do I use plants as medicine? What is it that the trees have to teach me? What is it
Mhm.
that the earth has to offer? And I feel like our world is so busy and sometimes so disconnected from the earth, right? We're really
Big
just
time.
connected so much to our phones.
Right.
But every time I spend time with the earth, I find the most deep messages waiting for me there, like they've
Mm.
been waiting all my life. And it makes everything a little bit more simple, a little bit more clear. And so my heart is, okay, I want to make this space available for everyone to discover what's waiting for them here
Wow.
in the earth, right? And so that's the heart that's behind Haven. And I'm going to pause because I've just been going on
Woo! Well,
and
this is great. So I have a few pieces out of your story that I thought were really compelling or that I'm curious about. So one is the generational legacy of entrepreneurship and what it
on.
was like and how it has shaped you growing up in
Mhm.
entrepreneurship. And this is something for me as a dad entrepreneur. You know, I got two little, I mean, incredible young ladies that I have the opportunity to raise, and they're growing up in an
Yeah.
entrepreneurial setting. And I think sometimes for me, I can feel nervous about that because it's different. You know, I'm not a
Yes, it is.
9 to 5er with a, you know, kind of typical thing. And they're coming with me to stuff and they're on my lap at investors meetings sometimes. And right. So I'm like seeing, okay, there's some, I want to hear from you what it's like, because
Yeah.
clearly you turned out okay. So,
Ah, yes, by so much grace, right?
right.
Um, yeah, I never knew anything different because both sides of my family were entrepreneurs. My
Mhm.
my father's side was the garden center side that I've told you about, and my mother's side, my grandfather was a builder, and he started literally from scratch, and they built a lot of Beaufort, North Carolina.
Wow.
Um, just lots of construction and stuff. So I was always around, like that was the conversation at the dinner table every single night,
Wow.
right? How's the business doing? How is this employee doing? What policies are we going to, adjust or put in place? How do we grow? How do we save? How do we give?
Mm,
All of those things were included in the conversation. And I think for me, there's a couple of things that stand out to me in your question. One of them is the beautiful benefit of growing in the mindset that I am creator and I
mhm,
can create things because I'm powerful and I have the ability to make whatever I'm dreaming about or thinking about come to pass. Like that was the mindset that I was raised in, right?
mhm,
There's nothing that we can't grow. We just have to be smart and good stewards.
mm,
So that side of it being included in all of the conversations was so helpful to me because it was just second nature for me to understand business, to understand employees, to understand what happens behind the scenes. And then also, I was expected to work harder than anyone else,
mm.
right? There was not a sense of you're the boss's kid. No, you're the boss's kid, so go clean the bathroom. You're
Right,
the
right,
boss's
right.
kid, so go do the job nobody else wants to do. Be there early, stay there late. Like that was the
Mhm,
expectation. So it created in me a real sense of appreciation for our employees.
mhm,
And that is something I'm forever grateful for. And then on the flip side of that, one of the things that I've learned now as a mom is that it also cultivates a sense that work never stops, right?
ah,
And so what
yeah,
I've
talk about that.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, that is something I had to learn outside of my family of origin is that
Mhm,
work is here to serve the greater purpose of who we are and as an
yeah,
expression of who we are. But there's a time when you have to set it aside for family. There's a time when you have to make space and carve out Sabbath
mhm,
because without that Sabbath, without that refilling the bucket, you don't have anything to offer. You're just
right.
running on fumes. And honestly, that's part of what has really been pulling at my heart for Haven is like
Mhm.
creating that space where people can step away and really find that Sabbath in the middle of their work week or at the end of their work week or whatever. So,
And how
both,
has the deepening connection with the earth cultivated that? Because I
mm,
feel like Mother Earth, moves in seasons, moves
yeah,
in productivity and rest and these beautiful rhythms. Has that informed some of the growth around your relationship to work? I want to tie
yes,
that together.
a
Relationship
hundred
to earth and
percent.
relationship to work.
100%, it's reframed everything for me because in capitalism and in retail, the mindset is you go 100% of the time, right?
Mhm,
But
mhm.
there doesn't seem to be the space to rest or reset or watch or
Wow.
reseed, right? So I think that one of the things that the earth teaches us is that, and this is true for scripture too, like there's a season for everything, right? There's
Mm,
a season to sow, there's a season to wait, there's a season to reap the harvest. There's a season for planning. There's a
mm.
season for resting. And I think probably the winter has taught me more than anything
Yeah.
because it's like, when you think about seasons that are slow, especially when you're considering it in business,
Mm,
the temptation is to take the mindset of like, I'm not being productive enough. I'm not making enough money right now. I'm not producing enough product not right now. I don't have my accounts growing right now.
right.
But the truth of it is like every plant needs to rest.
Mm.
Every body needs to rest. And the thing about winter in the landscape is that it's actually the time when the plant grows the most.
Okay, come on, talk to me.
Most people don't realize that, but we actually
Okay.
teach people when you're planting for your landscape, you plant in the fall because most people think spring, but
Okay.
actually the best time to plant is in the fall because what happens is you put that plant in the ground and you give it the season of rest where the roots grow deep,
Mm,
right? There's no pressure from the sun in the summer, there's
mm.
no pressure from the heat, but the plant is able to really dig in deep in the winter. And
Wow,
so that is something that
that's
I've been
powerful.
cultivating in my own life and in my family is like embracing the winter season. Don't judge as it
Ooh,
as unproductive. look at it and understand that your roots are being fed right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The core of you is having time to grow. Instead of the part that everybody else sees that blooms and is beautiful, it's
Yes.
the core that needs that time to rest and grow too.
Mm. Now, I would really like you to expand on this for someone who feels like, who's watching now, who feels like they're in a winter season,
Mm,
especially in the era of public facing social media and all of these things where there's a lot of emphasis on what people see and not the
yeah,
roots, not the deep work.
yeah,
It's what shows up and how it's looking in the world. And I think that adds an extra layer of pressure or amplifies the pressure that people feel to look
mhm,
productive. And so I would could you expand on that for somebody
mhm.
who feels like they're in this winter season and just encourage them in this time?
Yeah, that is something that I feel like was spoken to me as well because it's like one of the things I felt like I heard in my heart is the trees are never worried about becoming trees.
Mm,
Like they are what they are meant to be, and they're going to become that in season no matter what, right?
mm,
And so they're not concerned about how much they grow per day or how much, what people are thinking of them in what season. They're just focused on being the tree,
mm,
being who they were made to be, right? And so it's so tempting to want to put that stuff out there for the public, but what if in doing that all the time, we're not making the space to find
right,
out more about who we are?
right.
Because if we're constantly projecting and we're never taking the time to reflect, then we're really going to just continue to produce the same image, right? Over and over again because there's no growth taking place. So
Right.
while it might feel like I have to go, go, go and show, 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 the reality is that I think is like, what would happen if we took a moment to look deeper and find out what's calling me to that next place of growth, because
Mm,
when I show back up on the scene, I'm going to have more branches in bloom. I'm going to
mhm,
have a wider, expanse of this bush for
mm,
you to see,
mhm.
and you're going to be wowed by the color because I'm going to have given that time to rediscover. And I
Right.
think that all businesses that really do well, they give space for rediscovery.
Mhm,
Right? They don't
mhm,
stay stagnant. It's not like, I'm just trying to think like Nike or something like that. They
mhm.
constantly evolve in the way that they allow you to know them.
Right. Which requires deepening, which requires reflection. The line that's coming to me now in this is, it's like grow and then show, right? Like go do the growth and then say, okay, hey, here's how I have evolved transparently. This is what it looks like, or this is, how the journey has shaped that. I think that is so, so, so good. I want to hear more for the people who are watching who are deeply spiritually connected. I
Mhm.
really think we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Like we are here
Absolutely.
to bring that. What does it look like to have business as an expression of your
Mm.
divinity? Right? What is that? How does that look for you?
I knew this was gonna come up today because this is what came up for me in my morning devotion. Literally literally just read this morning. Your expression of your own divinity by being alive and by loving yourself and others is an expression of God to say, "Hey world, I love you."
Wow. Wow.
And when I read that this morning, I was like, that's a perfect thing to express here because
Mm,
really, like, as you said, if we're spiritual beings having a human experience, what we truly get the opportunity to be is God in the earth.
mhm.
So the more fully I can know myself, the more fully I can connect to source, the more fully that I can express that true identity,
Yeah.
not the thing that Instagram says I'm supposed to be or the perfect image that man has created, but the
Mhm.
more I can tap into who I really am, the more I have the opportunity to express God in the earth, right?
Wow.
So it's like the earth is waiting. The earth is waiting for us to fully discover who we are and to represent that to
Mhm.
to the earth. It's also, and my husband helped me to see this very clearly, in the word resource,
Mm,
right? If God is source, then, and we want to become a resource, all we're doing is just giving back who he is.
mm,
By giving who we are, we give back who he is. So we
re,
become the resource, right?
mm,
And
mm,
what
mm.
higher calling is
That's
there,
right.
right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. It made me think of a Khalil Gibran quote from the book The Prophet. He says
Mm,
that work is love made visible.
I
It is
love
love
that.
made visible. That is what our relationship to work is ideally supposed to look like. It is love
Yeah,
made visible,
so good.
tangible. I love that. I love the journey that you're on. So, what does it look like next for Haven Farm? I know you've
Mm.
talked about really making this a community space and bringing that together. Practically, how are you doing that? How are you bringing people in, bringing people together, even from now on the journey? In what ways are you really actively cultivating community? Because community does not happen by accident. It
That is
happens
so
by
true.
intention. So for people here who are listening, who are community builders, who love bringing people together, love gathering people in whatever ways, whether it's through art, through business, through
Mhm.
any sort of medium, how would you help them build community on their journey? What does that look like practically for you?
Right. So it's so interesting because, again, born and raised in Raleigh, but I actually just feel like it's been in this last 5 years that I've really been able to cultivate community the way that I felt called to.
Mm,
And that's because I got out of my own boxes, right?
right.
And started to connect and find where are people showing up. So what that took for me was going and being a part of markets, local
Mhm.
markets. That's just something that we chose to do because that was a good way for us to connect. But it's in those places where you find local entrepreneurs growing their business, and then you're able to really make those one-on-one human connections.
Yes.
And while I fully appreciate and love the necessary social media,
Cool.
internet-based stuff, right? It's a part of what we do, and we also do that as well.
Yeah.
But I really think finding ways to connect face to face with people is super important. And I know that's been really hard during COVID, but now that we're coming into a safer space, that's my encouragement is challenge yourself to get out of your normal routine, the
Yes.
normal places that you go, find somebody different than you, right? Find a
Mhm.
place where you go where not everybody looks like you or not everybody does what you do for work, and connect there because you'll find within that space that all the pieces of the puzzle are there, right? Your
Mhm.
piece is a piece, but connecting to community looks like joint to joint, right? This is where I connect to you and where I can serve you and where we become one together in the service to the community. So I think that's probably my number one encouragement.
Yes.
Um, Even simple things like just taking a risk to meet for coffee with somebody you don't know, or reaching out if you're more comfortable on social media, reaching out to someone. Good example. We have a relationship now with the North Carolina Nature School, and they're going to be doing classes and camps out here at Haven.
Yes. That's
It was so
beautiful.
simple. It was just like I saw them online. I said, "I love what they're doing." And I just reached. I said,
Right.
"Guys, I love what you're doing. I want to know more about it. Will you come have coffee or whatever?" And
Mhm.
now we're connected in this synergy that's going to grow both things,
Yes,
right?
yes. Well, and to the social media point, I think social media as a tool,
Hmm.
there is a massive opportunity for social media to be social, right? Like if you were to actually
Absolutely.
use it that way, I don't know how many connections in specifically in the triangle where I've leaned in exactly the same thing. Like, hey, love what you're up to. Let's grab coffee.
Yep.
No agenda. Like what do you got going on? How can I support? And those things over time, over a 4-year span have led to some really cool relationships and some really cool collaborations that were born out of just the genuine, like, I see you doing cool things. What does that look like? And how can I be a part of that journey? So
Yeah.
I think we can also use social media more socially, and especially, more and more coming out of this pandemic a little bit, to actually get together and do some of
Yeah.
the face-to-face stuff or hop on Zoom if you have to. So what type of organizations, what type of people, give me
Mm,
like, what is the core of this work? Like, who are you feeling like you are called
mm.
to serve? Who do you feel like you are attracting in this space? What vibe are you putting out? Because vibe attracts your tribe. So what
Oh,
is
for
the,
sure.
what is the vibe that you're really wanting to put out, and the types of people that should be reaching out to you and connecting with you on
Yeah.
this journey?
Great question. Because my reach is broad. Like my
Mhm.
my heart is that everyone has a space here at Haven.
Yeah.
So my arms are wide open. But truly, what resonates most with me is people who feel a calling to other people to
Mm,
serve. Like
mm,
service to others is the vibe, right? It's
yeah.
like how
Yeah.
do I connect with people who are looking for what they do to be a resource.
Mm,
So whether that's my friend Mama Salsa, who she sells salsa, but at the end of the day, she wants to give back to the community. So,
yeah.
that her name is Crystal. She's beautiful, a wonderful example of somebody who's constantly looking to do good work and
Mm,
make their love visible through their work.
yeah.
That's the kind of person that I'm looking to connect with when it comes to business. Um, Ultimately, at the end of the day, I really have a heart for helping and serving communities of color.
Hmm.
It's really important to me. It's always been something that's been on my heart in such a fiery way, is that there needs to be a shift. There needs to be in our community a more equal space for opportunity and room for growth for
Mm,
color, for communities of color. And so that's something that I really focus on, or my household really focuses on, in our giving as well.
mhm.
And at the end of the day, that's something we're looking to grow as an extension of Haven, a nonprofit or foundation that would enable entrepreneurs to connect to the resources to help their dreams grow.
Yeah.
That's my dream.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the kind of people I'm looking to connect with. That also includes, for example, connectivity groups where people are getting together. Like the
Mhm.
Women's Social Club is a group that I really am loving the work that they're doing. But then there's also like groups where you're just looking at farms who are looking to grow other farmers. Sankofa Farms is a beautiful organization.
Yes. Yeah, they're doing
Faithful
great work.
Farms with Howard Allen is like my favorite guy ever.
Incredible.
With Faithful Farms, just people who are about knowing how to give back. That's really what my tribe is.
Mm. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. So now you have been on this journey and, been on a really wild adventure getting all these pieces up and running. What advice would you give to somebody starting out? And let's go specifically in the um, agriculture space, right? People who are
Mm,
interested in getting involved, interested, they feel called to the earth. They want to get their hands in the soil. I'm asking this selfishly, right?
mhm,
So, what
mhm.
advice would you give to
Yeah.
somebody who feels passionate about growing things that way and connecting to community through earth?
Such a good question. My thought first is starting small,
Mhm.
because while a lot of things look um, really cool on Instagram, like
Right.
gardening and farming is work, right? And you want to
Yes.
start small and appreciate that growth in incremental ways. So
Mhm.
if let's just say someone is not a landowner and they want to get involved, my thought would be find a community garden somewhere
Mhm.
where you can have a plot of land that you can be in space with other people who are maybe more experienced gardeners than you, and you would be able to have a smaller place to grow, learn about it, and then say, well, do I want to do this more, or is this all that I want to do? Right. There's
Right.
those opportunities are available everywhere. And that's a resource that I can be, is to connect people to community gardens, because through the garden center, we have a huge program called Plant a Row for the Hungry. And
Mm.
we have so many people around the triangle growing food for themselves, and then they give their surplus to the hungry in the
Oh, I
community. So
love
I
that.
could help connect people in that way as well. But then, if that's not the space that's calling to you, I would say, find a couple of things that you really love and start growing those in your own home. You
Mm.
can do that on your back porch, you can do that in your yard, on a little 4x4 plot or container garden.
Right.
And then just find somebody who can give you some tips along the way. That's the start, right?
Yes.
But I think if you're looking at larger scale, and I don't know if your question goes to this as well, but if there's somebody looking for a larger place to grow, the
Yeah.
first thing that you want to do when you're looking for land is do some testing on the soil,
Mhm.
you know, because the dirt is everything, right? You want to
Mm.
make sure that your soil is good in the spaces that you're wanting to grow. And you're also wanting to take a look at things like if you're looking to start a farm or a garden of any, large size, where is the water on this land? How can
Yeah.
I get water to this land? Um, just those kinds of questions are the first thing that we would recommend somebody thinking about when they're getting into this, because it's the basics, the
Yes.
water and the dirt.
I love that. Now, I want to hear how that applies to the larger picture of life, right? The
Mm,
environment, the soil that you are in as you are growing. So now we can kind of pivot to people who are growing a non earth-based business, let's say that
yeah.
way. They're, growing another business. What about the environment there? The soil, the water, what does that look like? And I also loved your piece about starting small and starting with where you're at. So let's pivot
Mhm.
that towards entrepreneur who is wanting to grow a business. What does
Yeah.
that look like for them?
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, you wanna learn how to do the thing that you're trying to set out to do and do that well first. So,
Mm,
if you wanna grow some tomatoes, learn how to grow some really juicy tomatoes, 10 of them, 10 plants before you
right,
plant 10 rows, right?
right.
Because you wanna become excellent. You want a good tasting tomato. You want, no cracks and no bruising and things like that. So that's as it applies to business, I would say the same thing is that you want to start in a place that's manageable for you so
Hmm.
that you can give your full self to that product.
Hmm.
And then also, when it comes to the soil, for me, when I think of business, your soil is your community,
Mm,
right?
mm,
You want to
mm.
be planted in a place that's rich and full of the nutrients that you need to be able to grow well. So,
Yes,
you're looking for places where the community is going to also feed what you're growing, right?
yes, yes, yes.
And you can give back to that. Like it's a very reciprocal thing. Like on a farm, you're constantly adding back into your own soil, right? You're
Hmm.
constantly adding compost, you're constantly adding nutrients. But that land also needs to give back to you. So looking for places and spaces. And that's why I said my tribe is service to others, because I know
Yeah.
that the more we all reciprocally are giving to the community, the richer that soil is going to be. So
Wow.
plant yourself in a place where there's good community and good soil.
Come on. That's so good. That's so good. This is rich, rich, rich. Where do people find you? How do they connect with you as we wrap up here? What
Yeah.
does that look like? How do people get in touch?
So you can definitely go to our website, haven-farm.com. But I
Hmm.
think the easiest place to connect with us is going to be on Instagram and Facebook right now.
Yeah.
We are, constantly updating and showing our progress on the farm, and we'd love to connect with people there. And then that's a great place for you to DM and find out, when you'll start seeing when we're having events out here, which I'm hoping is going to be in the next couple of months.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, hopefully so. We're
Big deal.
hoping to do some pop-up garden center stuff out here on the farm just to get some traffic going. And I did
Yeah.
not mention this part. I didn't mention this yet, but we're also building a shop out here on the farm so that people can come and get plant-based medicines, plant-based products, locally made goods, and garden center related things for your home. So we'll be able
Okay.
to
So you'll
provide.
also be curating products from
Yeah,
other entrepreneurs out there. Okay.
that's right. We are looking
So
to
entrepreneurs,
bring
make sure
different.
you
Yep,
connect with Leslie if you are in a product-based business and you feel like there might be alignment there. This is the person to go to.
absolutely, absolutely.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for
Um,
making time. This has been beautiful and such a rich conversation. And to everybody here on LinkedIn, thanks for joining us. Like I always say, you could have been anywhere else, and
yeah,
time is the most valuable thing because we never get it any more of it. So thank you for choosing to invest here with us. And Leslie, keep rising. Let us know how we can support. We're in your corner, and we want to see you win.
yes. Thank you so much, Justin. What an honor to be here today. Thank you.
Love it. Talk soon.